Hi guys, welcome back. Today I'm here with Jaxon Hughes with Fulcrum Homeloans, and we're going to be chatting about all things first-time home buyer. Hi, Jaxon.
How's it going?
Good.
Yeah, like she said, my name's Jaxon Hughes. Been doing loans for about 4 years now, and love getting to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a big thing, right? And especially in a market where we're dealing with unaffordability, and I feel like there's a bigger fear factor maybe than ever, and first-time homebuyers tend to have the most amount of questions. So, just tackling those. So what do you feel like is the biggest advantage to owning a home?
I'd say 3 things. So the first being, I don't think there's a better vehicle to grow your wealth than real estate. And the reason for that is, one, it's a forced savings vehicle. So when you get into your mortgage, yes, you have a monthly payment, but every time I'm making that payment, part of that payment is going towards owning that house.
Right.
And obviously, if you want to stay under the roof, like a rent payment, you have to make that payment. And so it forces you to save into something. And there's no other vehicle like that, right? If I'm going to invest in the stock market, or even if I'm trying to stow away money in my bank account, there's nothing forcing me to do that. But with real estate, in order to stay in that house, you got to make your payment.
Yeah.
The second thing is that when you do buy a house, you're capping your monthly payment at the top of what it's ever going to be, potentially for 30 years, right? If anything, if rates go down between the time you buy and the time you leave the house, you can refinance and lower your payment. There's nothing else like that, right? Well, if you get into a lease, it's not going down next year, most likely, right?
Absolutely. Have you dealt with someone that was, say, paying rent and looked at a mortgage and they said, oh my gosh, it's not worth it at all? Have you dealt with the tax savings aspect of owning a home? And have you ever broken down those numbers for someone? Hey, yeah, your rent was $2,200 a month and your mortgage is $2,600 a month, but you can write off every ounce that you paid in interest, which could potentially, it makes it a wash, right? But you're also paying towards something that you own.
Totally.
So it's not necessarily cheaper to rent.
That's a really good question. I'd say for anytime you're getting pre-approved, or you're deciding whether you need to buy or not, you need to look at your full financial situation.
Yeah.
And the tax implications are one of those things. Most of the time, especially for first-time home buyers, if you're buying a house, when the time comes to file your taxes, your standard deduction is usually more than what your annual interest is going to be. So it's not always a huge factor in those first few years, but at some point that can play a big factor. But I always tell people, rates are important when figuring out if it makes sense to buy or not, but it's not necessarily the deciding factor, right?
Yeah.
There are people that, if rates drop to 2% today, should not buy a house, right? It's just not going to make sense for them from a financial perspective. Then there's also some people that if rates jump to 10% today, it still would make sense for them to get into a home. So I always just tell people it's important that we look at your entire financial situation before you go and make a decision like that.
And so with first-time home buyers, there's a couple different advantages that they have being in the market, right? So what are some things that first-time home buyers can take advantage of that other buyers might not necessarily be able to look at?
Yeah, sometimes there's a bit of a savings on the interest rate, which is great. Another awesome thing that we have here in Idaho is a down payment assistance program. So you can get into a house for as little as 0.5%.
Wow.
And that includes your down payment and closing costs. So if you're trying to buy a $400,000 house, you need $2,000 at the closing table to get into that house. Obviously, if you can put more down, that's going to lower your payment. It's great to put as much as you can down, but especially for people maybe who just got their first big job, or they got a significant raise and they're making enough money to qualify for a house to pay their mortgage, but they haven't had the time to save up, it can be a great program for them to jump in before waiting 1.5 years to boost their savings.
Yeah, that's amazing. It gets them in. It gets your foot in the door. Yeah, that's so important.
So I know it's super important to get pre-approved, but from your perspective, before someone talks to you or while they're talking to you, why is it important to you that they get pre-approved?
Well, I've dealt with a lot of different situations, right? The majority of people are really scared to get pre-approved for a number of reasons. People feel like that 90-day timeline that gets put on a pre-approval is scary or puts a pressure on them, or some people just don't want to give someone all their financial information. It can feel invasive. But what I have found is I've had folks who have not gotten pre-approved, and we've gone out and looked at homes, and then all of a sudden, they're in love with a house, and then it takes a second for all the pre-approval process to happen, and all of a sudden we've lost that house. Right? Or there's situations where we're looking at a certain price point. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'd be pre-approved for $400,000, and then all of a sudden, $350 is your top, right? So then it's like we're shopping in an area that we shouldn't have been.
Right.
So it makes the whole process more complicated to not get pre-approved upfront before looking at a house.
Yeah. From my perspective too, I think it also helps people to know what their top end monthly mortgage payment can look like, so that when they go in that $350,000 house, they know what it's going to cost them monthly, right? They go into that $450,000 house. Same thing, right? They know what it's going to cost them, because that's a big determinant as to should I buy this or not, is what's my monthly payment going to be? And getting pre-approved not only tells you, all right, this is how much you qualify for, but also, hey, here's what it's going to actually cost you to buy.
Yeah. And I feel like people can sometimes be just looking at the price of the house and the interest rates and not even necessarily thinking about the fact that there are tools that can be used to alter their monthly payments in this kind of market, right? So they might be pre-approved for more than they thought because of all the like seller concessions and things we can use in this market to get their monthly lower to where they want it to be.
No, that's a really good point. We've had a ton of first-time home buyers utilize temporary rate buy downs or permanent rate buy downs that are given either through a builder credit or a seller credit that can increase what these people qualify for. So it can definitely be a great tool.
It's so good. It's good to know just before we're getting started, right? It just makes everything way more seamless, I think. So while we're on the topic of getting pre-approved and how scary that can be, can you debunk some of the factors that are making people so scared? What is the reality of getting pre-approved?
Yeah. First of all, it's a super simple process. Usually it's about a 10-minute application, uploading a couple of documents, and within 24 hours, you usually have an answer as to what you qualify for and what your payment would look like. So it's very simple, costs nothing. We can do what's called a soft credit pull, so it doesn't necessarily have to touch your credit at all. And then it lasts for basically as long as your financial picture doesn't change. So obviously, if you go get a new job or buy a truck, that's going to alter your pre-approval numbers. But as long as like your financial picture doesn't change, it doesn't really change your pre-approval all that much, other than maybe the interest rate. So it's a simple process, doesn't cost anything. And like we were talking about earlier, it just gives you information that helps you make a decision when you're out shopping for a home or deciding if you even want to go shop for a home.
Absolutely. That's so good. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jaxon, so much. I hope that this was helpful and provided you some insight as a first-time home buyer and took some of your fears away.
Thank you.